Let me bring in Ohio Congressman Michael Rulli, a member of the House Judiciary, Education, and Workforce Committees. Congressman Rulli, it's good to see you. Thank you very much for being here. I know you used to help run the Rulli Brothers Market, a multi-location Italian gourmet market in Ohio. It's been in your family for over 100 years. I love that story. I want to get your take on how a deal, if not reached by January, impacts your family business, other family business, because this is now, very touch and go until January 15th, and they're trying to hammer out a deal right now. How will that affect grocers and grocery prices, in your view?
Well, the first thing it's going to affect for me is bananas. Our little niche is that we have bananas every day for 39 cents. So that's one of the main ports it comes through. So we have a lot of concern about the produce that's coming from South America that'll be coming from the ports. The 62% increase, I don't think is the real issue here. I think the automation of the industry, in particular that port, they kicked it down the road just like we did the CR. So you're going to see in late December and early January a lot of topics for your show to be talking about.
Well, look, Congressman, you just saw that clip where we asked the port workers if they support Kamala Harris. And the reason that I asked that is because throughout this strike for the last couple of days, Kamala Harris has been tweeting about how the longshoremen unions deserve fair wages, and she's not going to get involved. She supports them picketing. And so when she said that, one might assume that they're all aligned, that the unions support Kamala Harris, and she's telling us how, they deserve a fair wage. But in fact, you saw what happened. Not one person raised their hand. So what it proved to me was her commentary on this whole thing was just politically expedient. She just said, OK, well, let me just insert myself here and say that the workers, deserve a fair shake. Meanwhile, she was just wanting their votes. I mean, they never said they supported her. Not one hand went up. So your thoughts on the unions and where the support is with 30 days before this election?
Well, it's like deja vu for me. Back in 2016, I was on the Rush Limbaugh show. I was on the meat counter at Christmas, and I had like 6 of the biggest UAW workers you could imagine with UAW sweatshirts on, but they had MAGA hats on. And I think even now it's a little bit more on steroids, because the question that J.D. Vance brought up the other day in the debate also holds true. Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? It's a simple question. It's a question that we're going to win on, because all Americans are worse off today under the Harris administration than we were 4 years ago.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the debate, because Democrat vice presidential candidate Tim Walz was forced to correct the record on his claim that he was in China during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests at the vice presidential debate. Watch this.
Governor Walz, you said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
I got the opportunity in the summer of '89 to travel to China. 35 years ago, be able to do that. I came back home and then started a program to take young people there. I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect, and I'm a knucklehead at times.
The question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this, so I will just, that's what I've said.
So, Congressman, he said he misspoke. He says he's a knucklehead. Okay. He previously said he's been to China about 30 times, but now the Harris-Walz campaign is trying to walk that back, saying, no. He's only been to China closer to 15 times. Okay, so 15 times. Now, you're on this committee. I would like to know who paid for those 15 trips or 30 trips to China. Did the Communist Party of China pay for it? Because that does line up with what they like to do. By, showering a potential candidate, showering potential political influencers with money and gifts, the way they did with so many others like Hunter Biden, Eric Swalwell, Dianne Feinstein had a Chinese driver for so many years. So do you know who paid for Walz's trips to China?
I know Chairman Jordan is very interested in this subject, and Swalwell actually sits on the committee with us. And it just seems strange that they continuously have these connections to China and that they're so intrigued by China. I think that's where the real concern, it's even more. You know, they want to sell him like he's the guy that you want to go have a beer with and he's your football coach. But there's a lot more to him than meets the eye. And we're going to put him under the microscope and we're going to see who actually paid for that.
All right. So you're going to ask him who paid for those trips then, because we would like to know. We would like to know if China paid for all these trips.
Absolutely.
There's a new House Judiciary Committee report, meanwhile, warning that the terrorist threat to the United States has skyrocketed under President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris's dangerous border policy of open border. It finds that more than 1.7 million illegal migrants officially believe they pose a potential national security threat and that they've been encountered at the border under the Biden-Harris administration. How is this possible, Congressman? How is it possible that 1.7 million people were let into this country and they are actually on a list that pose a security threat? Okay, so far this year, there's been nearly 532,000 quote-unquote special interest alien encounters. That's compared to 98,000 in 2021. Special interest aliens include migrants from countries that are of special interest to the U.S., including Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, China, North Korea. I guess we could make our own assessment as far as why those particular countries pose a special interest. Can you explain it?
You know, Maria, this is my #1 point of focus in going to Congress. We have a major problem with this border. Those numbers that you just talked about, those are just the people we know about. How about all the people we don't know about? You have terrorists all over this country. It was done by design to get votes for the Harris-Biden administration. And it is the biggest fear that every American should have. These people are in your neighborhoods. They're in your local department stores. They're at your schools. They're everywhere. And this was done by the Harris administration. Judiciary is going to not take our way.
It's unbelievable. This is probably the biggest misstep and failure of the Biden-Harris administration. Biggest misstep. Wide open border. Congressman Michael Rulli, thank you, sir. We'll be right back. Stay with us.